Clara Barron asks her colleague, Asher Grace, who has a crush on her, to come as a last-minute date to her parents' wedding in Mexico. One of the guests is her ex-boyfriend Daniel, who is determined to confuse her. As an OBGYN, Clara's job is to learn more about her clients' personal lives, so she can help improve their health. At the surface, everyone seems to be looking for love and affection. But underneath, there are too many complications. While some of her clients don't know who the father is, others have partners who hit on her. She watches people making the same mistakes all the time just because they are unwilling to accept that true love isn't for everyone. Clara has made her peace with this and is enjoying her life. She's focusing on the flings and trying to avoid any emotions in between. She wants everything to be quick and chooses to ignore when her fling tells her he loves her on the first night. The next morning, she does everything to quietly leave the guy's place without waking him up. When she reaches home, she is surprised to find her mother Eva trying on a wedding dress in her Ella apartment. Her sister Abby is there too, while Clara jokes about being surprised their mother is wearing white for her wedding. Her parents have never officially been married yet, even if they have been together for 40 years, and Clara wonders why they suddenly feel the need to do it. Eva is just happy thinking that her father might finally rest in peace knowing that she married at some point, so her daughters don't go to hell. Clara thinks what she did last night is enough for her to go to hell, but her mother begs her to take a shower and try on her maid of honor dress. Abby decides to catch up with her while she showers and they discuss what she did last night. Abby is already married and wants the same for Clara, since she can't understand how someone as attractive as her can't find a date. The guys Clara sleeps with aren't decent enough to ever see again, according to her. She was in love once 8 years ago and knows enough now to understand she hasn't felt like that with anyone else. Abby suggests she can just find someone cute and Mexican for the wedding. In the next scene, Clara successfully completes another delivery and makes the couple very happy. After that, her colleague Asher comes to her office to pick up some charts. Since she is surrounded by flowers, he can't resist asking what it's about. She explains how it's a part of her duties as a maid of honor for her parents' wedding, since she needs to pick out the centerpieces. Asher thinks it's sweet they're renewing their vows, but she clarifies that since they were hippies in the 70s, they never believed in marriage till now. She also properly notices him for the first time and realizes he is pretty and would work as a perfect date for the wedding. They're getting late for the wedding in Mexico, and Clara decides to keep getting ready in the car and be all over the place. Asher is more composed and responsible about crossing an international border. She has done this too many times to know they won't get stopped. Just like she predicted, they're able to cross comfortably. He is mesmerized by the beauty of the place but doesn't want to admit it's better than Australia. He is Australian but is pretending to have a Mexican grandmother called Jacinta, who married an Aussie, so he has some Mexican heritage to show during the wedding. Clara's nephew Bobby is very excited to see her with a date, and knows Abby will be very thrilled. Abby's husband Max is helping her with the dress when they are introduced to Asher, and they instantly know there's no real Mexican grandmother in the picture. They find out Max pretended to have one too, when he initially met the family. But Asher still knows a bit of Spanish and impresses Bob. Clara proudly escorts her father, Francisco, to his wedding, and they wait for the bride to enter. While they are exchanging beautiful and hilarious vows about ruining a good thing they had with marriage, Clara spots her ex-boyfriend Daniel in the crowd and starts to get worried. After the ceremony, when the sisters toast to not being bastard children anymore, a worried Clara downs her drink. Asher approaches her in excitement, but she's very distracted with Daniel greeting her parents. Asher can tell what's making her uncomfortable and suggests they leave from there. But Daniel is quick and stops Clara on her way, forcing her to properly greet him. They exchange warm pleasantries while she tries to make an excuse about why she didn't invite him. They discuss how much he has been traveling and that despite being in love for a while, he didn't inform anyone. When the conversation starts getting too awkward, Asher warmly introduces himself. Clara tries to make an excuse about him having a Mexican grandmother, but Daniel already knows he doesn't. She still tries to compliment Asher about his Spanish and excuses herself to look for their table. Since Daniel is technically crashing the wedding, he invites himself to sit with them. Daniel works with Doctors Without Borders and loves traveling, and shares some funny stories. While everyone else finds him hilarious, Clara taunts him about how he cannot stay in one place for too long and loves his adventures. Abby asks Clara to be nice to him, but she's not in the mood. When her favorite song plays, Daniel remembers it and takes her along for a dance. This makes Asher feel more awkward, but Abby and Max try to strike up a conversation with him. Eva is glad to see them dancing, but Clara feels very awkward with him. Daniel can't take his eyes off her, but she is determined to look anywhere but at him. They discuss how they haven't met in 8 years, and she tries to insult him by insinuating that he looks old. He's ready to take any insult she throws at him, but she's finally taken over by his charm and admits he always looks handsome. He admits she is also always as beautiful as he remembers her, and even teases her about being with a little Australian. Things get more intense as she learns that Daniel still misses her. Since this is too awkward for her, she waits for the song to end as she can get out of the situation. Clara is crying in a corner when Asher spots her and comes over to comfort her. He understands that everyone has that one ex who makes them feel this way. While Daniel searches for her, she starts ranting to Asher about Daniel suddenly turning up in their lives out of nowhere and pretending to be family. Knowing how upset she is, Asher does his best to make her laugh with silly jokes. She briefly tells him about how serious things were with them, but gets called by her mother for the dance. While she's about to follow Asher, she spots Daniel waving to her before he leaves. Back in the Ella hospital, Asher heads over to Clara's office to meet her. Despite his nervousness regarding the reason for the meeting, he is led inside by Lisa, her receptionist. When he enters, Asher asks her out directly on a proper date that night. Clara is at a loss of words, but tries to point out how sweet he is, before totally rejecting him. She thanks him for coming to the wedding but tries to make an excuse about how she doesn't date anyone from the hospital. When he isn't convinced, she confesses that she doesn't like him, even if she wants to. This makes him more interested in the conversation and he wants to know what's wrong with him. When any silly excuses don't work, he guesses it's because of Daniel. He gets a little frustrated and asks why she's not with him if she feels he's so perfect for her. She knows he's bad for her, but she doesn't want to engage in the conversation, especially because Asher is pointing out how she likes to run away from things. He wants to know her better, but Clara claims she's not interested. She's with her patients, Lily and Beto Alvarez, during the sonogram of their son-to-be Clark, whom they have named after Superman. While Lily is very excited and thinks Clark looks very happy inside her, Beto doesn't seem too interested. Lily shares that she talks to the baby a lot whenever she's frustrated or wants to pour her heart out, and taunts Beto for not being there for her. Clara is at the bar again, and gets a call from Abby to stay there for a bit longer. Clara is thinking of Daniel, so she decides to leave, but is pleasantly surprised to see Asher walking towards her. She knows her sister has planned this and seems very happy to see him. But she's very drunk and falling all over the place, so he brings her to his apartment and takes her to the bed. Even if it offends her at the time, he decides to sleep on the couch for the night. The next morning, she's trying to sneak out but notices Asher waking up. She apologizes for refusing to reveal where she lives last night, and he asks her to join him on the couch. They get cozy and talk about Daniel, who just had to turn up once in her life to make her forget everything else. Asher insists he understands her situation, and shows her a tattoo of someone's name and declares that the apartment keeps reminding him about her. He still feels that despite being haunted by the past, people can make room for others. He starts tickling her to get her to admit she likes him, and she finally does. He bends down to kiss her, but she still manages to tease him about putting out. This time, when she walks back home, she finally looks happy. In her office, Lisa has let Asher in easily again, and they're both thrilled to be with each other. He wants to take her out on a proper dinner date but learns she won't be there for the weekend. She is visiting her parents like she does every few months, but doesn't want to invite him. She feels things are going good with them and she doesn't want to involve her family yet. Asher understands, especially since he's working that weekend anyway, but they have a good time while they're still there. She is excited about the trip and meeting her family. Abby takes all the credit for pushing her to be with Asher, and he seems to be working well for Clara too. When they reach, Clara recognizes Daniel's car, and feels weird about him being there. When she reaches and watches her mother playing a card game with Daniel, she makes a sarcastic comment about not being able to get rid of him. Nonetheless, she decides to be a good sport and wants to use this time to defeat him. They all play games in the house, with Daniel and Clara getting along well. He even gives her his coat when she's feeling cold, and she decides to sleep with it. She keeps tossing and turning in the bed, feeling conflicted all the time. Daniel comes in to wish her a good night, to which she replies awkwardly. Now, she can't sleep, so she leaves a message for Asher, asking him to come to the trip. Daniel catches Clara drinking orange juice in the morning and informs her that everyone has gone to the beach. She loves the hike and wishes they had woken her up too. They decide to head out, with Clara reluctantly agreeing to sit behind Daniel on the bike. They walk the rest of the way since she loves the view. It reminds her of family and makes her feel good. He takes the opportunity to remember how bad her first apartment in Ella was, and wonders why he left her in the first place. He doesn't regret traveling the world, but he wishes he had asked Clara to come along. Even if this conversation is making her feel uncomfortable, Clara agrees she wouldn't have moved with him. He then brings up Asher, and feels like he's not her type. She is sure Asher is very good for her, even if Daniel compares him to a koala. Daniel isn't with anyone because he thinks of Clara as his first wife and home, because she feels like family. This forces Clara to point out how first homes are meant to be left. They reach the rest of the family, where Eva wonders if she talked to Daniel. Abby isn't too pleased with their mother trying to rekindle things between them, especially since he broke her heart and made her cry. Eva knows this, but Daniel reminds her of a time Clara was very happy, and she wants that for her. They enjoy the rest of the day and sing at night, where Clara dances with Bob. That night, Daniel comes to her room when she's in the middle of changing her clothes. He hugs her tightly while she jokes about looking different after so many years. But they're very close now, and neither of them can resist the other. They get intimate and everything feels like old times, when they laugh around and discuss things for no reason. When they're tired, she wonders why she can't stop loving him after so long. He knows they will always love each other, even if they're apart. Daniel tries to quietly sneak out of her room in the morning, but Abby catches him and greets him politely. She gets an idea and asks Max to have sex with her, who is very tired, and the moment is soon gone. Clara gets a message from Asher about coming over that night, which makes her panic, and she decides to call Lisa to confirm her appointment that day with her patients, since she wants to head over to Lisa to stop Asher. Abby thinks Clara is letting herself get hurt again by being involved with Daniel, but she is more worried about convincing Asher not to come. She realizes her plan of calling Asher to neutralize Daniel has backfired, and she needs to do something to fix the situation. In LA, she reaches Asher's office but finds out that he has taken the shift off, and his phone is still unreachable. With her clients, Clara assures them everything is fine, but Lily makes another rude comment about Beto never exercising. This somehow triggers Clara, and she suggests to Lily that if she's having a child with Beto, she probably shouldn't be so condescending to him all the time. She has known them for a long time and they're good people, but if they keep going against each other, the baby is likely to face an unpleasant situation at home. Her sudden outburst surprises them, but they agree with her in the moment. Clara is running around when she bumps into Asher, who is on his way to her parents' house. She awkwardly uninvites him from the weekend and insists he wouldn't want to be there. Asher knows she's panicking but assures her that he can handle whatever obstacle she thinks there is. On their way to her parents' place, he explains why he went missing for a few days. His wife Liz had died 2 years ago on that day, and he felt bad about forgetting the date. He got married when he was just 19 because he was in love, and now he's a 28-year-old widower. She feels horrible about the whole situation and confesses that Daniel is also at her parents' house. He doesn't seem too surprised and is willing to face him if that's what it takes. At dinner, they discuss how Clara scolded her patients that day, and while she defends it, claiming that she gave them good advice, her mother thinks she shouldn't have. Daniel, who isn't too happy about Asher being there, makes sure to take Clara's side and keeps making indirect taunts about how it's important to point out if two people aren't meant to be together. Clara admits she overreacted, but she knows her patients hate each other now, which will not work out. While serving them his dish, Daniel also indirectly comments on how easy it is to spot a happy couple. When Asher gets up to clear their plates, Abby is quick to point out how tense the situation is getting. As Daniel proudly tells Max about his recipe, Asher suggests an alternative way in which it can be made better. He knows that because of one of his patients, whose father is a Mexican chef. Daniel directly taunts him about not being Mexican, which almost leads to a full argument, till Francisco intervenes. Clara apologizes to Asher for Daniel's behavior, but this time, Asher thinks Daniel has a reason for feeling so entitled. He doesn't want the details but knows something is wrong. The next morning, Eva invites Asher to play a game of cards with them. Daniel apologizes to Asher for letting things get weird at dinner, which Asher graciously accepts. When Clara comes down to join them, Asher politely admits he's not very good at poker. Daniel thinks the game is all about lying, and asks Asher if he knows when someone lies to him. Clara can't handle his taunts and asks Daniel to step aside to talk to her. When they're outside, Clara starts screaming at him for being a child. Asher tries to continue the game but seems too distracted, so he gets up to watch Clara and Daniel. Since their screams are loud enough, everyone decides to join him. Clara is angry at Daniel for making her feel like an idiot again, since he just disappeared from her bed the next morning. She knows he always leaves her, and she can't handle that anymore. Daniel insists he's still right there and refuses to leave without her. She knows she's unfortunate to be in love with someone like him, just like the women in her office who can't stand their husbands or get dumped. He confesses that he still loves her, but she's sure it's not enough. She wants to be with Asher and not someone who insults her and leaves. She admits that she's trying to compensate for Daniel with Asher because she knows life will go on when he leaves her, but it's much worse with Daniel. When she starts crying and hugs Daniel, Asher knows he has seen enough and very politely excuses himself from the family after thanking them for dinner. When Clara watches Asher leaving, she runs after him and asks him to stop. Asher is still very polite and just asks her to send his stuff to the hospital. She doesn't want him to leave like this and finally confesses that she slept with Daniel. Asher already knows this from the time he saw them together, but he isn't leaving because of that. He knows she thinks she's still using him, even if she isn't, and he's leaving because she has no idea what she's doing. When he's gone, Abby is still there for her and hugs her. During her next appointment with Lily, Clara apologizes for her unprofessional behavior. Beto isn't there with her anymore, since Lily took her advice. But she doesn't want Clara during her delivery and has spoken to another doctor. When Clara is lying on her messy sofa and feeling helpless, Abby and Bob come over to check on her. While Abby sends Bob to find her an outfit from Clara's closet, she asks Clara to get up and do something with her life. Instead of taking her advice, Clara gets defensive and suggests Abby doesn't understand what it feels like to not breathe when someone is not there, because she has had a boring life with Max for 10 years. She knows she has offended Abby and starts apologizing immediately. But Abby doesn't want to get insulted anymore and takes Bob away with her, commenting on how Clara doesn't even know which guy she actually likes. After another blunder like this, Clara tries to call Asher, but gets his answering machine. She then calls Daniel and goes in to get ready. Clara is very drunk and has taken over the stage, and makes some comments she shouldn't have. Daniel walks in at just the right time and takes her away. When he brings her home, she feels it's unfair that she dreamt of Daniel bringing her home from a bar like this, but never knew she will feel sad about it. In their house, Abby watches Max putting Bob to bed, and when he comes out, she asks if he can breathe without her. She doesn't know if they've ever been in love. Max doesn't want Clara in her head and points out a new freckle on her hand. He's trying to tell her that he knows everything about her and is living to notice these changes in her. He doesn't care what her situation with her family is, but he knows he's in love with her and is there for her through everything. Daniel has prepared a bath for Clara, and she wants to know if he'll leave again. He confesses that he's not with Doctors Without Borders anymore, because they asked him to step down since he lacks commitment. She finds it funny since she has known it all along, and thinks it's sad that he came back because he had nowhere else to go. He jokes about coming back because of her, but admits he just wants to go to hell. She doesn't want to go there with him since they probably have terrible food. While playing cards, Eva asks if she's still in love with Daniel. She knows Clara loves him like family, but that doesn't mean she's still in love. Clara knows she has compared every guy with Daniel since he left, on the basis of how they made her feel. Dismissing them made her feel superior because she didn't want to settle for anyone like Abby did. She also feels worse about her parents' wedding since they have set an impossible example. Eva tries to make her understand that she's with her husband not because they got lucky, but because things worked out. She knows she has fallen out of love with him many times, and when they met, their future didn't look promising at all. But Eva knows that once you love someone, you have to bet on them without guarantees and see how it works out. Just then, Clara gets a call from Asher and gets excited. Asher greets her very formally and informs her about Lily being in labor. He knows she's not her doctor anymore, but since Lily is scared and Clara is kind of responsible for breaking her marriage, he wants her to help out. Without hesitating, Clara agrees to come over. She first reaches Bito's place and asks him to get dressed. Bito doesn't think Lily wants him to be there, but Clara assures him that she will like it if he shows up, and she thinks his problem is that he listens to Lily too much. Feeling a bit reassured, Bito decides to tag along. Just like she thought, a lonely Lily is very relieved to see Bito there, and this feels like a beautiful moment to Clara. After the baby is born, she goes to check up on Clark to pick him up for his parents. She's very excited to hold him in her hands and even spots Asher nearby. He's glad she got Bito along and always knew she cares about her patients, even if she didn't. Since some people are watching them, Asher decides to leave. Clara brings baby Clark to his parents, who are resting, and whispers about having a long conversation about them later. She hands him over to the excited parents, who immediately get busy trying to figure out how to hold him. Happy about making sure this reunion happened, Clara leaves them alone with their child. Abby makes Max taste her pasta sauce, which he pretends to like but isn't too happy about. They hear a knock and Bob announces that Clara has come over. When she tries to apologize, Abby doesn't want to hear it, but just wants Clara to know she was wrong about everything and her marriage. Clara agrees and still asks for forgiveness, which ends up in a beautiful hug. With a gesture, Max forgives her too and doesn't allow her to torture herself with the pasta sauce. Daniel meets Clara and notes how happy she looks. She discusses how after watching the parents she scolded earlier having a baby, she feels like she wants that too. She has seen happy couples and families all the time, and now she wants that for herself. When Daniel looks at her, she clarifies that she knows they are family and they grew past the couple thing. Daniel still apologizes for leaving suddenly the way he did, and Clara is sorry she didn't ask him to stay. In her clinic, Clara has a lot more clients she engages with and has fun with them now. She knows there's love everywhere, like between her parents and Abby and Max, even if it doesn't look like it's supposed to. She knows love can also turn into something else, like a deeper friendship which she now shares with Daniel, since she happily lets him go wherever he wants this time. But she still is unsure about what love is, and hopes it works out for her. As a romantic gesture, Clara has set up a dinner table with candles and tablecloths, just like Asher always wanted. She makes sure to point it out as he makes his way towards her. For a while, she doesn't know how he will react, till he smiles and comes over to kiss her. She wants to say something, but he doesn't let her, knowing that she doesn't understand too many things about the situation. Now Asher is back with the family, but no one is happier than Max, who has won the bet about Asher coming back to their lives.